Hello, my friends, and welcome back. It is time once again for you and for me to get our minds aligned with the truth of God through this morning mindset. I thank you for taking the time, for making the time to align your mind with the truth of God. We are going to look at one small little section of Psalm chapter 138. It's a section that I believe points out something of great importance that we need to keep in mind as we go throughout the course of our days. The author in Psalm 138 says, "I give thanks to you, O Lord, with my whole heart. Before the gods I sing your praise. I bow down toward your holy temple and give thanks to your name for your steadfast love and your faithfulness. For you have exalted above all things your name and your word." You know, if I were to ask you, what is the most important thing to you? Your answer would be very important. It would be something I would need to pay attention to if I wanted to know what makes you tick. You might say it's your faith in God. I would hope you would. You might say it's your family, your children, that you leave some sort of a positive mark on the world. Whatever it is that you say, your answer is revealing something core and essential about you. Now, what if I were to ask you, what is the most important thing to God? What would you say? Some of our answers might reflect the spiritual or faith background that we come from. Some of us might say the salvation of souls, or that people obey Him. But this section of Scripture points out the answer to that question. What is the most important thing to God? Because it tells us in the end of verse 2, God has exalted above all things His name and His word. So in essence, what it's telling us here is that the most important thing to God is God Himself. And I know that sounds a little egotistical. It would if a human being said it about themselves. You know, the most important thing to me is me. You know, we would all be kind of repulsed by that. But when God says it, we're in an entirely different category, my friends. We have to realize that. When God speaks about Himself, He's able to do it, and it sounds funny to say it this way, but He's able to do it with complete objectivity. He's not trapped inside His own head, thinking about Himself from a limited perspective like you and I are. God is all-knowing, and that means He knows Himself completely as well. And in knowing Himself completely, He knows that He is the most awesome, the most mighty, the most glorious being in all of creation. In fact, He knows that all of creation is sustained and kept by Him. And therefore, He knows there is nothing more important than Him. Can you get your brain around that? Can you consider that in the flawed state of our human thinking that we have? Is that something that settles on you as being absolutely true? Because that's what this passage is telling us when it says, God has exalted above all things His name and His word. You see, His name represents His being, who He is. That's how we identify people, is by their name. And so when God exalts His name, He's exalting Himself. And when He exalts His word, He's exalting what He has spoken to us. Those two things are not only the most important things to God, I would suggest to you they should be the most important things to us as His followers. Just stop for a moment and consider what it would take in your life to reorient your thinking around these two things. That the most important things in your life are God Himself and His word to you. My friends, that is the beginning of the fear of the Lord. That is where we begin to reverence Him as He ought to be reverenced. My prayer for you today is that that will be your mindset as you go through the day.